I thought the silence was going to kill me. The empty house, the empty bed, the answers that I had but didn't fill that gap. It was like mourning the death of somebody that was still alive. And if you're going through a breakup, a separation, or a divorce, this one's for you. And these are 5 things that I went through, which I wanted to share with you, which might help you during this hard time. So the first thing is the pain won't kill you, but holding it in may. And I think a lot of the time we do tend to just hold it in, keep it together, don't break, be strong, be a man, like we were always told. And that's actually one of the hardest things to do, is to keep it together. This is the time that you got to be processing. This is the time you got to break. You got to be vulnerable. And if you don't have a safe space, find a safe space. Be with somebody who is safe for you to talk and go through and process. But the main part is to not just keep it in. Holding it in is going to kill you slowly but surely. All those questions, all those whys. You got to speak it up. And I remember with mine, I kept it in. I didn't want to talk about it. I remember my wife said, are we going to speak to the family and the kids? And I was quite hard-headed, and I said to her, no, you're the one that wants to walk away from this marriage, so you can talk about it. You can inform everybody. But I was avoiding the trauma that I was currently going through. I was avoiding those hard conversations. I was hoping some way I could still fix this. And I quickly realized I couldn't. One of the best things that I could have done, well, look, I don't like journaling, but I pulled out a pen and a paper, and I just started writing small things, messages to my wife, anger messages, disappointment messages, all the whys, all the questions, everything that was going on in my mind. I didn't feel as if I had anybody to talk to, so I started writing down all of these things. And in the absence of paper, I would send myself voice notes. I would just speak out what is going on in my head, and those small little things really does help. But one of the big things that helped for me was to go and see a therapist. I remember starting off seeing a free therapist online, but then through insurance, I could go and speak to a therapist in person who helped me navigate through this hard time. They also asked me a lot of uncomfortable questions that I wanted to avoid. At one stage, I even wanted to stop going to therapy because I felt this therapist is now asking me a lot of stuff that made me uncomfortable. But it was through those uncomfortable situations and through those uncomfortable moments that I went through that I could finally find my own closure. Number 2, you're not broken, you're hurting. Just like any other wound, if you had to fall and hurt yourself, wounds take time to heal. This is not a process that you're going to be able to fix. This is not a hurt that you can just fix overnight. There's no quick win to this. This is a slow process that you've got to endure. You've got to build through it, and you've got to work through it. For me, I did try and rush through the process. I tried to get all those questions answered. I tried to find solutions to everything. Generally, I think like most men, we do try and fix problems that come our way. But this was one problem I just could not fix. And that made me very uncomfortable. It made me feel unsafe and insecure, to say the least. My masculinity was questioned. I questioned everything that I was standing for as a man. And I felt embarrassed. I really did feel embarrassed. So, in a nutshell, you got to be kind to yourself and realize that this process is going to come better. It will improve, but it's going to take time. And then number 3, closure isn't something that somebody can give you. That is something you got to choose. Closure is something you choose to take. I was fortunate enough where my wife answered my questions. Any question that I had, she would answer. She answered them honestly. It was uncomfortable for her. It was uncomfortable for me. But it did not bring me closure. All those questions that I thought was going to bring me closure did not bring me closure. What brought me closure was realizing that There is no person that's going to take away this hurt inside me. I've got to do that. My happiness is in my own hands. And my message to you today is exactly that. If you've got a wife that's willing to share answers to your questions, great. I think that does help to some extent, but it's not necessarily going to bring you closure. There's no easy aid to say that when you've got all these questions answered, your life is going to be okay again and you're going to be able to move on. The answers might sometimes actually make things worse for you, because the more details you have to what's transpired, the more question you may have going on in your mind, and you might actually start questioning yourself even more. So be sure that if you have got a wife that's willing to share answers to you, that you're ready to hear the answers to. And number 4, you're going to miss her. I remember feeling extremely attracted, more than anything, to my wife during the first, I would say, week or so. But that's a trauma bond, right? I remember feeling hate at one stage is a strong word, but I hated that I was so in love with her more than ever. And I suppose it goes to that saying that you only really miss the one thing that you have when that thing's gone. And when your wife has asked for a divorce and said she's unhappy and she's walking away, you go into a trauma bond state where you feel overly attracted to this person, in a bit of a panic state. You may sit at night crying about it, thinking about all the good times that you guys have had, looking at her, if you're living in the same house still, having that attraction because you're a human. For the most part of your life, you were living happily with this person. At one stage, you guys had a very good thing going on. You might have even had kids together. So this isn't a light switch moment where you can just switch off a light and stop loving somebody. So loving her is normal. But that absence of her loving you back in that same way will get better. As you start working through this trauma that you're going through and processing it, and healthily processing this trauma bond that you currently have, things will start getting a little bit better for you. And then number 5, this is not the end of you. As hard as this may sound, this is actually the beginning of you. For me, the first 6 months was probably the hardest. I remember clearly thinking that this is the end of me. There's absolutely nothing to look forward to. Work-wise, I was doing really well. I was in a good space. I just got a promotion. And literally a week of my promotion, my wife asked for a divorce. So I felt as if, well, what's the point? There's nothing worth living for anymore. Everything that I've been building on in my mind for the past 16 years has just come to an end. I, in a very codependent form, was enmeshed in my wife, where I had her as the core of everything that I was doing. And rightfully so. I think as men, we do want to provide everything for our spouses and our kids and our family. But that enmeshment really does stand in the way of you living your own autonomy and having your own personal life. So that was not the end of me. That was the beginning. After the first initial shock stage, I would say of 6 months or so, wore off, and I slowly but surely started falling in love with myself, if I can put it that way, and accepting myself and really spending time with myself. That I realized, if I'm not even 100% happy with myself, how could I possibly expect my wife to be happy with me? So this journey was a journey of me putting aside the trying to win her back, stages that we all go through, to rather trying to win myself back. And that was probably the best thing I could have ever done for myself, because I could then get to a stage of saying, hang on, this is actually something I need to focus on. And I remember my therapist was saying to me is, you might one day look back and say, is this marriage actually something I want to pursue, or is it something that I do want to step away from? And whatever your story is, it will be slightly different. But my message to you is your marriage or your separation from your wife does not define who you are. This is your opportunity now to live the life you always wanted to live. So to wrap it up, closure really does not come through answered questions. It comes when the pain is just enough where you can't deal it anymore. And if you're on that journey too, consider subscribing, become part of this community, reach out. I'll always be here to talk. I might not always have all the answers or the solutions to you. Like I mentioned, this is a very personal and intimate thing that you got to figure out, but I'm more than willing to help navigate some of the questions that you might have. And I'm going to be having a live event happening soon where it'll be the perfect platform for you to ask any questions that you may have, share your experiences, and just for us to hang out and have a good time. But till then, look after yourself and we'll chat soon. Take care, brother.